Now, Matthew, good afternoon.
Joel, Fletch, how are you? By the way, Jannah, we have it most nights now on the Thursday night of the show. Mate, it is scrumptious. Oh, it's delicious.
What's your go? Just bung it in a wrap?
Yeah, we get the Lebanese bread.
Yep.
And you get the chicken.
Yep.
Garlic sauce first, put it down there. Then I like to add a little bit of the
chippies?
hummus. No, we do get the chips.
But you don't put them in the wrap?
No, because we find that during the football season we turn into fat heaps.
We sure do.
Because we just eat too much.
So you try and be good?
Well, we're trying to be. But if you know,
Mate, the coleslaw's a secret. The coleslaw's a secret.
Oh.
And so's chili.
The chicken is. I know they say if you don't love it, you haven't tried it. It is outstanding, isn't it?
Oh, it's unbelievable. Because I'm just looking at you, Matthew, here in the Supercoach tips. Round 27, that old photo, you look like you've just stuffed your face with Jannah. They keep putting that one on.
Death by Jannah.
Is Hindy in that comp?
No, he won't do it.
The Great Brendan Cow's going to win it.
He's on 132. Matthew, you and I are equal.
Whereabouts, Fletch?
We're equal on 122. We're running about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th.
But you're on the top page. You're on the
We're
top
on the top
line.
page.
Yeah.
Tallis is last by a long, long way. 109.
Very good.
Oh, dear.
Nice.
Now, let's talk about this said paper because you've happened to write an article which the Brisbane Broncos special report, Matty Johns draws comparisons between 1996 Newcastle Knights. And at one stage of the article, Matty, Malcolm Reilly has got you there at the Newcastle Race Club, and around the bend they come. It's Jackson in front of Crow, Conley starting to move in with Troy Fletcher, Glanville moving up on the inside from Mule, Richards, Harrigan. Here comes Matthew Johns. Did he literally have you running down the track?
I tell you what he did. Like he would take us. The first session we did with Malcolm, we go to the Newcastle race course, and he takes us to the 1,800 metre mark, and he divides us. He goes, righto, everyone who was a back rower here, all the front rowers here, all the hookers there, all the outside backs, and all the halves. So he had us racing from the 1,800 metre mark, from the 1,800 metre barrier, all the way to the finishing post, and we're racing against blokes who were trying to take our jerseys.
Oh.
So, mate, it was awful. And, mate, we do about 5 or 6 of them. Other days, it was like the full-length track. It's the hardest. It's the hardest I've ever trained. It was ridiculous how hard. And the thing about it was with Malcolm, he knew what he was doing, right? So he'd be at the finishing post, had these dark sunglasses on because he's an intimidating guy, and he had a notepad there. And he'd say nothing, and as you go past, he'd just make a note. So anyway, one day, I reckon he knew what he was doing. We were somewhere, there was myself and Chief and Malcolm, and he left the notepad there. So I thought, I'll have a sneak peek. And I thought, I wish I didn't, because he was just into us. And then he personally wrote a letter to every person in the squad, personally written note, saying, I feel like I really regret my decision coming here. You guys have such low standards. I don't see any of you as winners, right? And we're like, what? So anyway, it did the trick. Standards just went through the roof. We won our first 9 in a row. We only lost, I think, probably 3 or 4 games in the season. But Manly knocked us out in the grand final qualifier. But what happened, boys? And this is why I draw similarities with the Broncos. And people say, it's easy to say, oh, mate, you're not on the inside, you don't know. But if you've been a lifetime in the game, you recognise it, you see it, and it's so obvious. When you're in towns, big city towns like Brisbane and Newcastle, who are football crazy, mate, when you have success, it's hard to navigate because you get a lot of adulation, you get a lot of attention, and it's so easy to throw you off kilter. And that's what happened to us in '96. We went away on the World Cup tour. We came back. Joey was being classed as the world's best player. All sort of came out of nowhere, all this adulation. And we just become, mate, flogs. We were just like, mate, turning up with wraparound sunglasses at training. Joey and I, honestly, I threw it out. I had a copy here. We did a fashion shoot. Oh, mate. We looked like the fish that Hugo Boss rejected. We had like double-breasted coats. Now I like double-breasted coats now. Back then, double-breasted coat, turtleneck skivvy. Honestly, the only thing missing was a corncob pipe, and mate, we barely fired a shot. We missed the finals. We're all bluing amongst each other. Mate, we're getting booed off by the crowd. And at the end of the year, it was just so disappointing. But we sat down all together. We worked out what happened, and you felt foolish because we had our heads so far up our asses, we just didn't see the fall coming. But we returned to the racecourse the next year, went back to work, and we won the comp. And my thing about the Broncos, I can recognise all of those things with the Broncos.
Yep.
They say at training, the training sessions are just jammed. It's like Bronco mania, and they're a young team. They've had so much adulation, and I just think it's thrown them off kilter.
I agree, but I feel that this is the strength of the Melbourne Storm, being away from all this.
Yeah.
So they've got young players coming through. Obviously, like Harry Grant is a gun, and perhaps a couple of years ago was a young fella. They don't get that. They can walk down the middle of Collins Street and no one's going to notice them.
But also, too, they've got a bloke who just wouldn't allow it.
I know that, but it's very hard to, when they go out away from Craig Bellamy, when they're, you know what it's like in Brisbane. It is they're getting thin. And I remember we went and spoke to Ezra Mam at the start of the year, and he came in and he had the double earrings in the ears, and I said, we're just mucking around. So I haven't seen them before, and Kevy was there, and he goes, yes, you haven't seen them before. I'm not very happy about it.
Well, there's another picture of, and we're not picking on Ezra, but he's a young man who had just flashing success, who wins the Clive without the catch up of the Panthers, but it spotted, walking out with Louis Vuitton bags, and and it's kind of natural. You're a kid.
You're gone from 180 grand to $1 million a year. But
that's the thing, boys. Right? Adversity, like when you endure in adversity as a group, as a team. When you go through tough times, everyone rallies and it builds a lot of strength within the group.
Yep.
Success can do the opposite, and this is why how special Penrith are and how special the Melbourne Storm are, that have stayed at the top for so long. Yeah, that just takes so much mental toughness, and in this age, which is the TikTok, YouTube, highlight reel age, the most boring word in the world is consistency.
Yep.
But it's the most important. It's the most treasured attribute by an individual and a team, and consistency is the hardest thing.
That's why
I'm hoping that if the you got to go through that. You got to go through a year like the Broncos have. Everything came up roses last year. We're just talking about Ezra again. He was 15 minutes away from a Clive Churchill medal. So hopefully what they've gone through this year, they remember that for next year. So in the off-season when they're going, I don't want to feel like that again. I don't want to get abused by fans saying you're not good enough. So hopefully there could be some upside in this downside for the Broncos.
Well, I reckon, Fletch. I think if we didn't go through what we went through in '96, we don't win in '97.
Yeah,
in a strange way, we needed that. But there's so much of Broncos. Like before writing the article, spoken to a couple of journos, and they say the training session. The sessions are just like when you had grand final week or a big finals week, we'd have an open session for the fans, and we'd get 1,000 people there. And it was a little bit off-putting. It's so unusual. I couldn't imagine just about every training session being that type of distraction.
Yep.
And I think there's a few things that they've got to look at their football now and they've got to address.
And that's with, this is like what we see, right? So what we don't see is probably every bar they go into that every shout's being made. And,
correct.
It's all this.
That's right.
And it's not just... And you name here the naive young Cowboys and the success they had in 2022. South Sydney make the grand final. They fall off a cliff. Parramatta make the grand final. They fall off a cliff. Success.
Big time.
Hard to deal with.
Really hard to deal with. As you said, just because someone buys your beer doesn't mean you have to accept it.
Well, yes, you do. That's rude. Matthew, that's rude if you don't.
Yeah,
if I'm having a bit,
Fletch, it was a joke. I was joking.
I'm not drinking. Matthew, I was talking to the boys from December 1 till December 7th. I'm having a bit of a rally for our fans and the staff here. We're going to watch the sunrise for 7 days. Thoughts? We're going to get up early.
Would you like show? Sunrise?
No, that's what Brooksy said. He's a fan of Servo. And you live close to the ocean, so it's going to be better for you because you'll get the first crack at it. Would you like to join us? Are you an early morning?
No, okay. Sunrise stinks.
Okay. I love it.
I prefer dusk. I like sundown.
Okay.
Fletch.
Okay. No, well, fair enough. Each of their own. I've just told everyone if you want to come part
Although, given December and the football season's over, maybe we could go on a bit of a Terry Bender And
on the way home.
Just get home and just look at
bending.
the sunrise.
No bending. No
Okay.
bending.
Hey, Matty, let's talk about there's a sunset for one team. There's a sunrise for finals on Sunday in your old neck of the woods. Newcastle take on the Dolphins. I was saying to Fletch, on the one hand, I kind of see Kalen in a cape and a full house and him getting it done. But on the other hand, I just think this is Wayne Bennett, who took the Dolphins. He's never got them in the 2 years, got them to the finals. I'm really finding it hard to read. How do you see it?
Oh, it's very hard to read. Wayne Bennett in big games. And like we saw it last week. Like, don't want to sound like smart asses. We were talking about on the show. We said there was nothing like the Dolphins, which should have been odds on last week because it was Wayne against the Broncos. You know he was going to have them up. Interesting what he does this week. It would have been a nightmare week for Adam O'Brien because you're sitting there going, okay, now does he keep the changes? The side that beat the Dolphins, that shock team they changed at the last second, does that remain or does he change it back? You know, what's he going to do? Boys, I reckon, I think that he will, my gut feel is I think he'll change again this week.
Yeah.
I reckon Katoa will come into the side.
Wow.
I reckon he rested him up last week. And I'll tell you why, fellas. And I'll tell you the reason. One of the reasons I think that he didn't tell any of the players till the last moment when they got the Suncorp is because if you talk to people who are outside backs, right, or a fullback, and you tell them early in the week you're going to play in the halves this week, like the head noise and like the stress and the what have I got to do? Okay, I'm going to worry about this, worry about that. If you just spring it on them at the last second and say, mate, you're playing 6 today. I just want you to get out there, support the ball, and run the football. You just haven't got time to defeat yourself. If that makes sense.
Yep.
I've spoken to a few guys. I remember when Munster went from fullback to 6. The whole off season he had head noise because all he kept thinking about was, I've got to do what Cooper Cronk has to do. Now, he had the off-season to get his head around it, but for Avarillo, I just think it'd be dangerous to say, righto, mate, did a great job last week, you're back in 6 again. I think he'll change it up. I think Katoa will come into the team.
So Katoa will come in with Cody or with Sean?
Avarillo's at 6.
No, that's what Matty's saying. He thinks that he'll take that from him.
I don't think he'll play 6, Fletch.
No.
It would not surprise me. It would not surprise me at all if all of a sudden Hammer goes back to fullback, Trey full of the bench, and they mess around. Like, you know what Wayne's like.
Yep.
He's very possible that he'll do that.
He's got to. I know it'd be hard, but he's got to try and find a way out of O'Brien to just worry about his own troops, doesn't he?
That's what you got, mate. Yeah. That's what you got to do. You just can't sit there saying, right, Hammer's going to be on the left side now. Gags, if he does this, but then again, boys, if he plays fullback, players are just you can't saturate it with that type of information. You do just have to get out there and say, hey, listen, if we defend well, we retain our share of possession, and we attack well and we kick well, we're going to win.
Matty,
don't worry about that.
I was talking to Fletch about the importance of this Cowboys-Bulldogs game, and particularly from the Bulldogs who are in the box seat, because if they beat the Cowboys, home final guaranteed, and you take on Team 8, so there's your first tick. The second tick is that if they are to go on a fairy tale, your path would look like this. So if everything went in the rankings, you'd play Team 8, which is Dolphins or Knights probably, at home. If you win that, you most likely would play the Cronulla Sharks. If you win that, you dodge Melbourne in Melbourne for a prelim, and you'd take on either the Roosters or Penrith in Sydney. So everything's been in Sydney to this point. And if you jag that, you're at your home ground, Accor Stadium.
Yeah.
Against maybe the interstate team, the Storm. They have to finish 5th.
There's so much at stake. And I haven't gone off the Bulldogs at all after last week because they played... Boys, whoever they play against every single week, there's going to be a mismatch. And it either works for you or it doesn't. Last week, if Bulldogs, when they're playing big packs of forwards, they've got to dictate the style of the fight. And last week they just couldn't do it, and Manly made it a power game, and they knocked them over. But it's the mismatch that makes the Bulldogs. Given the fact that they could go in against one of the very, very elite top teams, and they they play the game and make the game their style of fight and beat them purely on the mismatch.
And the fact that Critter wasn't there, we talked about those players that give you, you get a little bit more confident in your dressing room. He's probably the best example of that.
Well,
having a bloke coming in.
My example was Jimmy Dimmick.
Yeah.
Who'd you say yours
Mine
was?
was Moz, probably.
Yeah, Moz. Who was yours, Matty? When they were in the sheds, you just felt safe and you thought, no, we're fine.
Yeah, the bloke I used to live with was a pretty good player, but also the Chief.
Yeah.
Chief was good. You look at Chief. Before the grand final, I think I've said this before, was that, he had a couple of years where he sort of took a step back because he was knocking people out left, right and centre. We stood in the circle as we were about to run the 97 grand final. He said, just follow me because no one gets sent off in the grand final. Oh. So it was like, you watch the first 10 minutes of the game. I tell you what, Dave Manson must have been close to sanding him because he cleaned up about 5 or 6 of them.
What about...
Did he clean up Tubes? Who cleaned up?
He did. Cleaned up Tubes, cleaned up Kosef, cleaned up Spud twice. You knew when he was on because what used to happen in a game, boys, Chief's such a lovely guy that when he started like knocking people out quite a bit and injuring people, it had a pretty heavy effect on him. And so I used to watch when guys would run in and challenge him, Chief would just grab him and pull him in. Like he wouldn't so much start throwing punches. I only went through that for a couple of years. But that grand final, Spud ran up and Chief grabbed him, pulled him in, and then just started hitting him with uppercuts. And I thought, okay, the big fella's on today.
You know what they forget about in that grand final, Fletch, and I bang on about this because no one seems to do it.
Matty missing the field goal?
No.
Yeah, I know.
No,
that was all part of the plan.
That was a glory. That was your glory day, Matthew.
It was.
That was going to be it.
That was the moment.
Matty Johns grandstand. I know.
But I think people forget where. Like I love a team. Just with the calculations, taking 2 if you're down. It's okay to take 2. I think you guys were getting rolled about 10-0. Hopper might have scored. Craig Innes has scored. And I think it was about 10-0. And your first points of the game, you said, no, let's just get on the board and kick 2. Was that what happened, Matt?
I think you're right. They went 10-0 up.
And 10-2, wasn't it?
2. We took 2. Yeah, it was. And then Robbie-O scored from the scrum to make it 10-8. And they scored just before half-time.
That's it.
They 16-8 at half-time. We go into the sheds and Joey's going nuts because we spoke about it all the week. Cliffy Lyons ducking across the field and dropping Beaver or Shannon Nevin off late, and it happened, and one of the back rowers didn't tie in. He was in the sheds just going absolutely nuts. And luckily we were able to settle him down and get our heads sort of back on it again. But you're right, Joel. And then we went back out, and the next 20 minutes was like a really tough arm wrestle. And then we got a penalty, and we took the 2 to make it 16-10. And then we were back. We got all the field position. You could see them just starting to come apart because the Roosters did us an amazing favour. The week before, the Roosters took them, I don't know if it might have went even into extra time, but the Roosters really took them to task, and Manly beat them 17-16. It was a really forgotten semi-final of how great a game it was, but it just took enough out of the tank for Manly. So that last 15 minutes, we had all the field position, and 16-10, and then I'm just trying to calculate what goes on. And anyway,
Robbie must pick up his second.
Robbie-O picks up his second.
Underneath the post? Is that the one underneath the post?
That's it. We're sort of playing a little bit of sideline to sideline, which you used to do sometimes to pry the middle open. And we went sideline to sideline. We offloaded that back to Robbie-O. He went through and put the ball down. Dave Manson didn't even check the linesman. He just went awarded it on the spot because he put it right on the line. And then at that point, boys, what we're thinking about is like field goals. So we work down, I hit the post, then Joey has a crack and he gets charged down. And what we used to say all the time, right, I swear to God, we used to sit there as young kids, right, and just watch certain games on tape. And one of the things we picked up on tape for years when we were young was the fact when wingers go to marker and it's on a sideline, throw a dummy and go up the short side because they just chase in. They're not used to being at marker. And we carried that as a principle for years and years. And it's 16 all, and I'm standing underneath the post, and I've got Beaver straight across from me, and I'm thinking, I'm calling for the ball. I'm thinking, I have to get this away quick. And then Joey realised Hopper was at marker and went dummy and went up the short side.
Oh, that's outstanding.
And all I remember, boys, is thinking, when Albie went across and scored, I was thinking to myself, okay, right, the next set, they're going to go for a short kick-off. And I looked around at the clock, and it went 3-2-1. I thought, it's over.
It's over.
Like, it's sort of, like, people always talk about getting in that ideal performance state. when you're really on and you forget about the scoreboard and you forget about the time on the clock.
Hey, Matty, we've got about the time on the clock here. Jannah's about to cut us off here. Have a good show tonight. We'll catch you soon.
See you, Kid Leroy.